Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for a special interview on the federal government shutdown this Sunday. I'm Susan Demas, the executive editor here at Lincoln Square. And joining me today is Everett Kelley. He is the president of the American Federation of Government Employees, and that's the largest union representing federal and DC government employees. He's also an Army veteran, and he's been a longtime member of the union movement. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Everett.
Thank you for having me, Susan.
Well, the government shutdown started last week, and usually government shutdowns occur during times of divided government. But in this case, Republicans control the White House and both branches of Congress. So why is this happening now?
Well, you know, to be honest with you, it just appears that um, the, the federal employees, they intend to use federal employees as a political pawn. And I can't think of any reason why the government should be shut down at this time. None.
Mhm. And I know that you've posted on social media that federal government workers should not be used as a pawn. Who do you feel is doing that right now?
Well, I'll put it like this. There's one party that controls the House, the Senate, and the White House. And they have the power, in my opinion, to bring workers back to work. That's no reason for the government to be shut down. None.
Hmm. During this period, Trump has threatened to fire thousands of government employees. And your union and AFGE are suing over this, saying that that would be illegal. Can you talk to us a little bit about your lawsuit?
Well, again, we think that to fire employees during a shutdown is completely illegal. Okay, we don't think that the two even mesh. They don't go together. So this administration is just doing things to antagonize federal employees, to intimidate federal employees, and to make their life miserable. There's no secret that this administration has intended to make the lives of federal employees miserable even before the election came about.
And can you talk to us a little bit? Because obviously, we have seen so many government workers being fired prior to this with Doge and under Elon Musk, and then even after his exit. Why are federal government employees being targeted so much by this administration?
You know, Two things. Number one, I think it is retaliation because we have stood up against this administration for the reckless cuts and dismantling of the government. This union and these employees have stood up. Secondly, I think that it's a way to put the federal government into a mission failure so they can contract out these jobs because somebody got to do this work, right? And
Mhm.
so, what better way to contract it out than to put them in mission failure and say, "Look, I told you they couldn't do it no way, so we're going to contract this work out." So, those are my two assessments.
Right. And there's also been an effort to try and nullify union contracts with some employees as well. Do you see that as also part of this continuing attack on government workers?
I certainly do. Again, I think that is completely retaliation. It's certainly not efficiency. For 93 years, we have represented these employees, and it's never been, and this administration is using this guise of, national security. Well, if it's national security in 2025, it would have been national security in 2018, but it wasn't, and it is not. It's just a way to intimidate federal employees to try and take protection away so that they become loyal to the administration and not to the American people and the Constitution.
And I know that your union is also suing the Trump administration for violating federal workers' First Amendment rights in forcing them to engage in partisan rhetoric during the shutdown, specifically the administration has issued ordered department communications and official websites to blame Democrats for the shutdown. Can you talk with us about what kind of position that puts government workers in? Because this is not something we've seen in previous shutdowns.
You have not seen that in government employees have always understood that it was a violation of the law to involve themselves in the partisan politics. It is what the law says. It will be a violation of the Hatch Act, and what this administration has done is place those employees right in the middle of Hatch Act violations. If they were doing this on their own, they would be fired. Okay, I think that any government official that's doing this and changing the email messages to indicate that federal employees are actually the one that's doing this, they should be terminated. They should be fired because it is clearly a Hatch Act violation. And federal employees have understood that for years. And therefore, we don't involve ourselves into a Hatch Act violation.
A third of federal workers are veterans. Can you talk to us about how this shutdown has been affecting your members?
Well, veterans, and I'm a veteran myself. Okay, I when I returned from the military, I took off that uniform, I put on another uniform, and I served the federal government for 31 more years. Okay, and these employees that are veterans, well, all federal employees, they take an oath and they take their work seriously, and this shutdown is affecting the morale of the federal workforce. It's affecting the mindset because you get up every day, you want to go to work and you want to do a good job for the American people, but with the added stress of not knowing what tomorrow brings, not knowing what the day brings. Matter of fact, it kind of put a damper on how that employee project for that day, what they actually do for that day, because your mind needs to be free to be able to perform at the highest level. And I think that's the intent of this administration, is to frustrate employees so that they make mistakes. But I'm hopeful that they are able to maintain and not make those costly mistakes, and just focus on getting the job done, as they have always done, because this is not the first time they've been used, as a pawn, as but they have always been able to, do their work and do their job and doing it in an effective and efficient way. I anticipate that they'll do that same thing, but the added stress, it's dehumanizing.
What are the terms that you would like to see to end this government shutdown?
I just want to see the shutdown ended. I
Mhm.
just want to see federal employees return back to their job so that they can perform the duties that they perform for the American people. It's only right. Now, I'm not here to point blame and all that. Although I do know where. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I do know. I do know.
No
I
worries.
do. I hope that you can fix that. But I do know who holds the House. I do know who holds the Senate, and I do know who holds the White House. So if we're going to point fingers, we have to point it in that direction.
Mm.
But I choose not to point fingers. I want to just see the government open so that these employees can get back to work. Because the truth of the matter is, these employees that I represent are just like the rest of America. 65% work from paycheck to paycheck. They live from paycheck to paycheck. And one paycheck can be detrimental. One paycheck could mean whether or not I get my medication, whether or not I pay my mortgage, or if I'm going to have, and some have to go to work, whether or not I'm going to have money to get gasoline to go to work. That's what happens when you live from paycheck to paycheck. And some of these people that's making these decisions have never had to live like that.
What are you hearing in terms of other folks, and as far as how the shutdown is affecting them, the services that they're not able to access from the federal government?
Well, I think that you're going to see very quickly. They might not have noticed much right now, but I would say in the next week you will begin to see slowdowns in people wanting to file beneficiary claims, or even maybe even VA claims, or maybe even food processing. You're going to see a slowdown there. When you start going through the airport, there could possibly be slowdowns at the airport. So the American people is going to eventually feel this, and they're going to feel it in a way that they won't appreciate.
The last government shutdown was during President Trump's first term from 2018 to 2019, and that was actually the longest government shutdown in history. And the Washington Post had a story that it actually cost the economy $18 billion. We're in a period where the economy has been faltering, inflation is going up, unemployment is going up. How concerned should we be about the economic impact of this shutdown as well?
Well, I think that you should be very concerned about the economic impact, because, when you start talking about, finances and funding not getting into the communities, right? It don't just affect that one individual, but it affect the entire community. And I think you're going to see more and more of that. Now, in 2019, this economy um, lost about $11 billion. Okay, now that's not the overall picture. The overall picture is about 18, but it lost about $11 billion. Now imagine this could be even more massive than that one, because you're talking about now inflation. You're talking about already, tariffs. You're talking about all of these issues that Americans are having to deal with. And it could be very detrimental to the economy of this country.
Have any leaders from Congress or the Trump administration reached out to your union during this time?
Well, there have been no one from the Trump administration has reached out, but I will say that I have heard from Leader Schumer, Jeffries, and I mean, countless number of Democratic senators and Congresspeople that have reached out to my union and expressed their concern, and let me know that they're working as hard as they can, to get the government open.
Any outreach from any Republican members of Congress, especially in leadership?
No, none.
How many other unions are impacted that have workers in the federal workforce?
Well, um, you're probably looking at probably at least 6 or 7 other unions. hmm Of course, AFGE filed a lawsuit with us, so they would be one. SEIU would probably be another one. Um, um, NEFI would probably be another one. And of course, NTEU would be another one. So it's probably about 5 to 7.
What else do you feel the American people need to know about this government shutdown right now, as far as how it came about and how it needs to end?
Well, I think that the American people need to know that, you know, if this doesn't end soon, it's just going to embolden this administration, in my opinion, to continue to tear down the democracy of this country, to continue to just, bulldoze over the American people and the services that they deserve and that they need. I would ask the American people, across the board, we need to step up, right? We need to step up and say enough is enough, right? And anything we can do, we need to make phone calls to Congress right now, Democrat and Republicans, and say, look, end this shutdown, and bring America back to its roots. Bring America back to what it believes in. This is just not the America that I grew up in, far from it. And the American people is going to have to be the one to step up and say, we've had enough.
And I know that your members are, people who are dedicated to serving the American people. They have these jobs because they believe in that America you're talking about and in public service. Um, talk to us a little bit about that, because when you hear the rhetoric coming out of the Trump administration, a lot of times it's dismissive or hostile towards government workers. But I mean, we're seeing right now what happens when the government isn't open, when things don't work. And I would love to hear from you about what you hear from your members about their dedication to their jobs, and what is going on now that they, are being threatened, where they could lose their jobs in the middle of this government shutdown.
You know, that's why I'm proud to represent these members, because they are so patriotic. Although they've been undergoing all of this pressure for the last 9 months, they continue to do their job.
Mm.
We call this a shutdown, but we're actually it's a shakedown. Okay, if you be honest about this, right? Because we want to go to work, but they got us locked out of our jobs. And these are people that have been called names, like you said. They've been called bureaucrats. They've been called Deep South, and I mean, you name it. They've been called names, and they have been mistreated. But they are so patriotic, they continue to do their job because they believe in what they are doing. And you know, they talk about bureaucrats in Washington D.C., but only 15% of the workforce lives and works in Washington, D.C. The
Mm.
rest of them is scattered throughout America. And who are they? They are the Veterans Administration workers, VA nurses, VA doctors that are taking care of veterans. They are Social Security Administration workers that are processing claims. They are the Bureau of Prisons, who are taking care of our communities while we sleep at night, making sure that prisoners stay locked up. They are the TSA workers who make sure that the skies that we fly in are safe. They are the food service inspectors to make sure that the food that we eat, is safe. EPA scientists making sure that the air we breathe is good. These are the federal employees that are being trotted upon. These are the federal employees that are being belittled and called names and said that, we want to traumatize them. Why? These are the people that are providing the services to the American people that I truly believe the American people deserve and they want.
In going through the polling, right now, it's a pretty consistent story across the different polls. People are blaming Republicans for the shutdown instead of Democrats. Do you think that that might have some sort of impact in ending this shutdown, especially because Republicans are the ones who control every lever of the government?
Well, I certainly hope it does, because my ultimate goal is to make sure that the government is open so that the people that I represent can, look forward to providing for their families, look forward to, getting healing health care for their children that are sickly, to make sure that parents are taken care of, to make sure that bills are met, to make sure that mortgages are paid on in a timely manner. So I hope that this government opens tomorrow.
Thank you so much for being here on this Sunday afternoon. I really appreciate you sharing your insights with us. And I know that all of us are hoping that we will hear some sort of news coming out of Congress sooner than later. It's been awfully quiet over there. Usually in the course of government shutdowns, there are at least some negotiations that go on. This does feel unusual to me. I've covered quite a few of them. Are you hearing before you go, are you hearing anything behind the scenes that's happening, or do they just not seem to be budging?
They seem not to be budging. I mean, I've never seen it like this either, Susan. I mean, the fact that you know people are being told we're not negotiating. We don't have to. I mean, how do we ever expect the branches of government to work if there is no negotiations, right? We're going to end up as a stalemate for the rest of the time because this administration is in power. That's not the way to run a country.
It's not. I completely agree with you. There have been so many times since we've been covering the second Trump administration that we've been saying this is not the way that things, have functioned in America, and that's why things are not functioning. And I'm sorry that your members are paying the price right now, as are many people in America. But I appreciate you sharing your insights with us. Thank you so much. And I appreciate everybody tuning in on a Sunday afternoon.
No problem, Susan. And know this, AFG is going to be here. We've been here for 93 years. We'll be here when this administration is gone, representing our members.